Так, следующая лекция. Рене Шапо. Германия. Трансвенозное лечение артериовенозных малформаций и 6D. Вот. Надо сказать, вот очень хорошая, интересная тема вот этих докладов, потому что тут мы можем увидеть те опции, которые нам пока еще сегодня недоступны. Надеюсь, в будущем они будут доступны.
Our next lecturer is René Chapot.
Okay, hello.
Здравствуйте.
Can you hear me?
Вы меня
Yes, we
хорошо
hear you.
слышите?
Okay, so I suggest to start.
Ну что ж,
So thank you for
предлагаю
your
начать.
invitation. I'm happy
Спасибо
to share some
большое
thoughts
за приглашение
on
выступить здесь.
the
Я с
way to
удовольствием
proceed, which is
поделюсь
very
с
close
вами
to what Charbel just
своими
presented to you.
соображениями. То, о чем я буду говорить, достаточно
The idea is
близко
to
к
go on
теме,
from transvenous
о котором сейчас только что
embolization,
разговаривал
and
с
the
вами
key point in what we do is to
Шарбель,
understand, and Charbel showed
трансвенозный
you
доступ.
very
И
nice
важно,
images.
что
I'm going to
надо
show
понять,
you
что очень
other
хорошие
ones, but
изображения,
all
очень
this has the
хорошие
same
картинки
goal,
показал вам
to understand what we
Шарбель.
do
И все это
and how
нужно
to
для того, чтобы
understand.
нам понять,
That's the
что мы
difficulty of
делаем,
AVM,
как
because usually
понять.
most
Потому
of the
что
understanding is obtained
есть
during
некоторые
injection. You
сложности в
inject from
АВМ,
the
потому
artery,
что
you arrive in something,
большинство
you don't know what it
осуществляется в
is, and
процессе
when something
инжектирования,
becomes very
и мы
large,
хотим
you
понять,
say,
что
oh, it's a good
происходит. И
thing.
если мы видим очень
But it would be
большой
better to
объект,
know
мы
this
говорим,
before.
что это.
So
Ну,
how to
таким образом
understand? It is
возникает вопрос,
difficult.
как
There is nothing easy in
понимать.
AVM.
Это
AVM embolization
непросто,
is not
и
placing a web in an aneurysm
обязаться
or
АВМ
flow
это
diverter in 5 minutes.
недостаточно
It's taking a lot of time
сложно.
to
Здесь
analyze
5 минутами не
each
обойдешься,
vein
и
when
требуется
you're
много времени,
injecting
чтобы
each
понять,
feeder.
разобраться в
And this is
ситуации
something which
и
is not
с каждой
usually
веной, с
done.
которым работаем, с
Usually when
каждым
you inject
наполнителем. И,
each
как правило,
arterial
при
feeder, you just see if you're
инжектировании
close to the
наполнителя
vein
мы
or not.
смотрим,
But looking at the vein
подходим ли мы
also
близко к вене
is
или
very
нет. Ну,
important.
анализ
You
вены
may add
также очень
rotational
важен, видеть,
angiography.
что происходит, и тогда
And
необходимо применять
something that we've
ротационную
developed within the last
ангиографию.
years, which is
В
a
последние
polychrome
годы
fusion of
развивается
3Ds,
методология,
what
которую
we
мы
call
называем
6D. So it's very
полихромный
simple.
фьюжн
There's nothing complicated in
трехмерных
there. We all
изображений.
know about
И
3D.
здесь,
When you do a 3D imaging
ну,
of
нам, в
this,
общем,
you
трехмерные
obtain that
изображения
kind of
достаточно
images on the
понятны, мы уже
MPRs.
знакомы с
In
этим. И
each
вот
direction you
такого
can
рода
choose.
изображения мы
So can you
получаем. Здесь
understand
можем
something
выбирать
here?
направление,
Somehow.
в
Not
котором
so
нам
much,
необходимо
but
посмотреть
still you can
лучше. Все ли
see
здесь
where
понятно?
the veins
Не
are, and
все, но тем
somehow
не
you
менее
try
мы
to understand the
можем
connections, but it's not so easy.
понимать многое, можем понимать
If you do
соединения,
now
но
2
это не так
acquisitions
просто.
on the
А
Siemens
если у нас
system,
есть
and this is not new, it's
два
existing since many
захвата,
years, so it's
два
not a new
получения
feature
в
that has
данной
been developed. And to
системе, и
Andrei's
последние
question
годы
just
как раз
before,
разбиваются именно
do we
такие
all need to have the
характеристики с
newest
использованием
material?
системы
The answer is
ангиографической
not
системы
possible.
Siemens.
But on a
И
lot of systems that
во
are existing, you can
многих
do it already. So
системах
whenever
уже
you
можем
make a new
такие
rotation angiogram, the
осуществлять.
system asks
Если мы
you,
появляем
do you
новую
want
ротационную
to
ангиограмму,
exchange or do you want to
мы
fuse? And usually
должны
we say we
подумать,
want to
должны мы
exchange.
осуществлять
And on the Siemens system, if you say
обмен
you want to
или
fuse,
фьюжн.
then you
И
get
в системе
a
Siemens
data
мы
set with a
можем
different
получать
color.
набор
So let's
данных
look at an
в
example. This is
другом
here an AVM,
цвете. Вот,
which is
например,
fed by the
здесь мы видим
MCA and the
АВМ,
ACA.
и
And if we look at the
здесь
left carotid,
посмотрим
the
на
left carotid
левое
only infills the
изображение.
anterior cerebral
Вы
artery.
видите,
The right fills in both. So we
правое
can do a
изображение.
rotational
Здесь мы
angiogram.
фьюзим, и здесь
And
мы
if we do a
используем
rotation angiogram
ротационную
here,
ангиограмму.
this is a
Вот
rotation
здесь,
angiogram from
посмотрите, если мы так ее делаем, это
the right
ротационная
carotid, where we only see the
ангиограмма
MCA.
правой сонной артерии.
And here is rotation
Видим
angiogram from the left carotid, where we
среднюю.
only
Здесь
see
вот
the
левая
ACA.
сонная,
So one
и мы
is the
видим только
MCA middle cerebral
видите,
artery,
одна
the
мы
other
видим
are the
среднюю
branches from the anterior
артерия.
cerebral artery.
С
And if we fuse them,
другой стороны мы
then we
видим
obtain this
более
here.
широкое
Blue is
изображение.
MCA,
Здесь
orange is ACA. And we have 0.1, a complete visualization of the AVM, not a partial one. And we can follow each artery. We can see here the leptomeningeal anastomosis. And we can see where the veins appear. And the veins are made of fusion of both colors. So the veins are green, you see? And we see what's coming here. Here's a junction between two anastomoses, between blue and orange. We see things that we cannot see otherwise. And you see again here, ACA is orange, MCA is blue. And for the analysis of, I don't like to speak of nidus. Nidus is something which is unclear. What we need to see here, what Charbel just said in other words, is we need to understand the venous segmentation. How are the veins connected? This is the key point. And by having it with color, it's a very important difference than if you had it in black and white. So this image is, I think, brings in more information, just as when you change from black and white TV to color TV. You have more infos. It's better to be seen. So we're going to look at a very simple example, not an AVM which is too large, an AVM which is here, where the number of feeders of arteries and of veins is not excessive, because the more there are vessels, the more it takes time to understand. So of course it's bled, that's why we need to treat. And here are the usual examinations that are done. So regular angiogram, and then you can do a rotational angiogram. Here is a rotational angiogram. And then after the rotational angiogram, we do selective angiograms. And here are the selective angiograms, where we put the microcatheter in the main feeder, where we see also the vein. So this seems to be quite simple. It's a small AVM, you've got a main feeder. And once we've been doing the rotational angiograms through the guiding catheter, then we make it also through the microcatheter here. And then we obtain this image here. And on this image, you see the microcatheter in orange, and the whole rest in blue. So orange is the injection through the microcatheter, and you scroll progressively through all pictures. So there are a lot of pictures to look at. Somewhere is a junction between artery and vein, but here you see something interesting. Here you see that what you get from a microcatheter is not the whole AVM. There's another part of the AVM which is coming from somewhere else. So already this is an important info, because it means that if you are in this feeder, if you occlude the vein, you may have this here, which is still coming, which may rupture the AVM. So where is the other feeder? Of course, there are other ways to do it. Everything can be done by different techniques. And here is where our microcatheter is, and here is the other part. Maybe it's easier on the lateral view. The main part with the easy feeder, and the second feeder, which is here, where the access is more challenging. So we take a second microcatheter and we search for it. And at some point, we find the second feeder, which is here. This is feeder number 2. So here on this picture, maybe the movies are not coming so well, but here I think that this picture is quite well. You see one feeder, the main one, and you see the second one giving this other part of shunts. And if you do this dual injections through both microcatheter, at some point you understand where the veins come together. And where the veins come together is here. This is the main outflow vein. One vein comes from here, and one vein comes from there. I hope that you can see it. And if we understand that this vein is coming from 2 compartments with 2 separate veins, then you can bring a catheter with 1 microcatheter here, a second microcatheter here, and a third one to create a plug, what I call the retrograde pressure cooker, to make sure that your embolic agent will go to the AVM and not to the whole normal venous system. So this is what we have here. One microcatheter here, a second one in the second vein, and a third one in the common, at the junction of both veins. And at this step, if we start to embolize, the caudal compartment, the one that was difficult to access. And then you see here that there is still a bit of artery getting to the AVM. It's not completely done. But we continue embolization with embolization of the second vein, which is this one. And when at the point where the embolic agent goes back to the main vein, then we do the plug. Here is a plug of NBCA. And because of the plug of NBCA, it's possible to force, to continue to inject back in the AVM through both microcatheters. So we continue here. And when to know to stop, it's always a question which is not so easy, but here you can see that this artery, still the indirect feeders, this artery is still going up to the AVM. That's why it's important to have a selective microcatheter inside, otherwise you cannot appreciate this. So as there is still flow until the AVM, then we continue to inject, because this could be a potential remnant. And when we have more injection, then we don't see this artery going to the AVM. So this is a clear answer to the question when to stop. You have to stop when you don't see the artery going up to the AVM, as we can see it now. So this example here shows, this easy example shows that if you have a partial visualization or a selective visualization with different colors, you can recognize which part of the AVM is where, and you can better understand. Now take, okay, it's cured. Now let's take another example, which is a more difficult one. 10-year-old boy, Spetzler 4, central sulcus. And this is his AVM, very functional territory, where, well, if you treat, you're sure that you're going to kill a lot of brain, because it's not possible to occlude the arteries of the AVM without occluding normal arteries. It's not possible. And that's why usually they are not treated. You see that there's a lot of flow coming from, supply coming from the anterior cerebral artery from the other side. And here you need to understand how the veins are connected in order to do a stage venous embolization. And a stage venous embolization is, if this is a scheme of an AVM with primary veins here arriving in the main vein, you cannot occlude such a large AVM in one step. Why can't you occlude it? Because the chance to reach all the shunts is too small. And if you cannot reach all the shunts, the AVM will bleed. But if you understand how the different veins are, then you can get access to a single vein, let's say this one. Place a plug here. The plug is best achieved with a combination of coils and glue. If you do only coils, the risk of onyx getting through the coils is very high. And if you occlude the other veins, it will bleed. But if this here is sealed, if this is very strong, then you can inject retrogradely to treat one compartment. And if you treat one compartment by the vein, then you can do it a second time, a third time, and a fourth time to cure this AVM. And this is what we did here in this young patient, where you may look at the NPRs, and when looking at the NPRs, you may see here that this is a primary vein joining the main vein. There is no doubt that this is a vein, that this is a vein, and you see the connection. You can see it, it's very clear, of this vein to the large ones. So once you see this vein, how to get access to it? The only recipe I know is to take a microcatheter and to look at each artery, so that when you inject through the artery, at some point you will see a vein that looks like this vein. This is a coronal picture, and here is a coronal picture after selective injections of one of the feeders, where we see this vein. And is this vein the same than that one? Maybe, maybe not. How to be sure? There's one way to be sure that is quite simple, which is to do another 6D while combining a fusion from guiding catheter and selective injection. So here we do another rotation angiogram through this microcatheter, and then we do a fusion. And when we've done the fusion, this is what we see. This is a part of the AVM that we fill in with our microcatheter. This is the vein that is seen. And is the vein here the same than this one? The answer is definitely yes, it's the same one. So now that we're sure to see this vein, then we need to access to it, which is not so easy. It requires a combination of different catheters to get selectively access to the vein, but it's possible. And once you get access to the vein here with two catheters, you can make a plug, and then you can start to inject squid 12, then you do the plug with NPCA, and then you inject retrogradely inside the AVM, this compartment. And this is very interesting because this is a distal transmedullary artery coming from the anterior cerebral artery going transparenchymatous. I mean, transmedullary means it goes all from the cortex down. And here is the shunt. This is an artery, here was a vein. And you see that we're just occluding the shunt, and we're not occluding the normal arteries. So this is after first transvenous embolization. This is the result. And for second transvenous embolization, we considered to take this vein here. This was second transvenous, where we went selectively to that vein here. Here we're on the way. This is here plug number 2. It's a second step. Each step requires 3, 4, 5 hours. It's a long procedure. But step number 2, we go to this vein. We occlude second part, first part, and then this is a remainder. And now it becomes more easy to be seen because the veins are very different. So for step number 3, we took that ventral vein, which is, this is the course of the vein, you see, it's like this. So if you go through the artery here, and if you want to push embolic agent there, you need to kill all those arteries, which you don't need to do if you go through the vein. So we got through that vein here. And once you go through this vein, then you can occlude that compartment. This is post. And for step number 4, then we got inside that vein that we've occluded, and we could cure this boy. And of course, it's a very functional territory, so we love to show pictures where the AVM is not seen anymore. Still, look at his motricity. It's 3 days after last treatment. And you see that his right hand is not perfect. But it's all recent. He still has edema. It's possible to move his hand, to move the fingers, which means that he's going to do better with time, no doubt. And this is a philosophy that we use for treatment of a lot of AVMs. Every day we treat this kind of AVMs. This is a pericallosal where we treat also in 3 steps by the veins, first venous, second venous, then we do the third one to cure. And this is here, another patient with that AVM, a little boy, which was cured. Look, he's doing perfectly fine. And this is another one where we also went through different steps to finish it. Or this is a very, very large one, extensively coming to that very anterior part, going around the whole corpus callosum. It took us here many steps, 8 steps, but she's cured. And this is another smaller one where you see that all those malformations have been treated. This is now a change from corpus callosum to insula. Insular AVMs are very well to be treated. But of course, it takes many sessions. This is here a young boy who developed within the years a large venous aneurysm, where within 3 steps of arterial and 3 steps of venous embolization, we could cure him. And after last step of embolization, 2 weeks later, his mother called me and she told me, oh, he's doing skateboard. Is he allowed to? So I asked, please send me some pictures, because it's the best way to show that he's doing fine. That's a patient a few weeks after the last treatment. So, of course, situations may be different. Here is an AVM with a typical location at Centrum Valley, where you see here that you have no deep vein. Unfortunately, the deep vein is our friend. So here we need to go through the vein here to get that part and to get it occluded. The same AVM in another patient, which is this one here, has this time a deep vein, so that's easier to get access to this part of the AVM. But one thing is sure, a lot of the AVM is only to be understood while you're doing the injection. So some can be predicted, some can only be understood when you do the embolization, as here. And interestingly, once we did the first step, after, this is also a patient with several steps of transvenous. Let me show it to you. This is what remains. And for step number 2, this selective injection shows an obvious vein. And this obvious vein is the vein that you can see here, where if I scroll through the pictures, you will see at some point the large vein, which is this one here. That's a large vein, and that's the one we access to. But I go back some pictures, there's another vein to be seen, which is this one here. That's another vein. And if there are 2 veins, then we decided to go to one vein, the one we just saw here, to pressure cook it, to treat it. But you see that the AVM is not cured, so there was a 3rd step to go to the vein I just showed, which is this one here. Let's look at it again. This is the vein that is remaining, and this vein is the same one that the one we could see before. You see, this is the remaining vein for step 3, which is the one we could see during step 2. And step 2, it was blue because we did not have a selective injection to this vein, but because of the different colors, we can see a lot of things. And of course, it's enabled here to bring the AVM to a cure and to have the AVM completely done. So, I see the time is running. Maybe a very short image to show you this here. In patient where there is a lot of onyx, it may be extremely difficult to see where the veins are. And sometimes the best way to see it when there's too much of onyx is to do this T1 MPR imaging, where you see the veins. Here is one vein, and here's a second vein that you can see. And unfortunately, DSA is not good. So we need a combination here of DSA and MR to see those veins, to be able to access to the vein and cure this AVM. So as a conclusion, definitely embolization has become today a curative treatment and not a palliative, using a combination of transarterial and transvenous. And understanding is definitely a key point. And the more you have tools, the better it is. And from this point of view, 6D is very important. Let me show you this picture of this patient that we treated by transvenous embolization of his AVM. And definitely he was quite happy that the AVM was gone.
Например, пациент, у которого АВМ было полностью решено.